Okay, here's what you'll be learning from this video. How to set up Better Auth Stripe plugin within your Next.js application, and then how to manage different cases with payments such as creating subscription, updating subscriptions, canceling subscriptions, how do you handle trials, and a bunch of other little important stuff. This video is in continuation with my first Better Auth video. If you do not know what Better Auth is or how do you set up Better Auth in your Next.js project, you can simply watch this video that I have attached to the description of this video. Now, Stripe plugin is a new plugin in Better Auth. This plugin lets you set up Stripe very easily within your apps for handling payments. At the time of making this video, here are some of the features that this plugin supports. It allows you to create Stripe customers automatically when users sign up. It lets you manage subscription plans and pricing. It gives you some of the very important lifecycle events, subscription lifecycle events like creation, updation, cancellation, things like that. So you can tap on these events and then you can do whatever you want to do. It handles Stripe webhooks securely with signature verification, and then a bunch of other stuff that you're seeing on the screen right now. All right, let's get started. Now the first step is to clone the repository that I have created in the previous video. You will find a link to this repository in the description of the video. I'm just going to click on this code button and then I'm going to copy this URL. I'm going to open my terminal. I'll simply clone this repository. I will then open this folder inside of my code editor. Now the first thing that we need to take a look in this project folder, I'll open this package.json file. And if you take a look at the Better Auth version, it is 1.1.10 in this repository. So that means we clearly need to upgrade our packages. So the first thing that I'll do, I'm going to install this package called pnpm add npm check updates. I'm going to install this as a global dependency. Now this is a very little handy package that can help you to upgrade the packages present inside of your project. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So what I will do, right within this folder, I can execute ncu, which is short for npm check updates. Now when I hit enter, it is going to check all of the packages and then it is going to list out all of the latest versions that are available for these packages. Okay. Now I'm going to update all of these packages except Tailwind CSS. I'm fine with Tailwind CSS 3 at this moment, and also because Tailwind CSS has nothing to do with this video. So I'm simply going to execute this command ncu-u, which is going to upgrade all these packages. And then I'm going to also pass some of the exception by doing something like this. And then I'm going to say, do not upgrade Tailwind CSS. Okay. All right. I'm just going to hit enter. And now if you take a look at the package.json file, you'll see that it has updated all of these versions, right? So the Better Auth latest version is 1.2.5. At this point, we just need to do pnpm install so that all of these latest dependencies gets installed in our system. If you are getting this warning related to pnpm approve builds, you can simply execute this command pnpm approve builds, and then it is going to list out all of the post installation script that you need to execute. I'm simply going to toggle all of these to yes. Now at this moment, I'm simply going to say yes to all of these because these are related with all of the packages that I have installed. It is again going to ask me, do you want to build these packages? I'm going to say yes, and then it will do its thing. It will essentially run post install script to do whatever the configuration it needs after installing those packages. All right, now the next step is to create a .env file at the root of the project. I'm going to click on this .env. And then I'm just going to add all of these environment variables. Now let me show you what I've done here. First of all, I'm using MongoDB as the database in this project. And this URL will point to the local MongoDB instance that I'm running in this my Windows system. Then I've added this Better Auth secret. Now you can either generate this secret using something like OpenSSL, or you can simply come here, Better Auth docs installation. And here you'll find this thing secret key. This has this button called generate secret. You can simply click on this. It is going to give you a secret, and then you can copy this and paste it right over here. Then we have specified the Better Auth URL, email verification callback URL. So all of these environment variables are exactly same like what we have done in the previous video. The only difference is these two environment variables, Stripe secret key and Stripe webhook secret. A little bit later in the video, I'm going to show you how do you actually get these values from your Stripe account and what you have to put over here. Okay. If we take a look at the schema.prisma file, since I'm using Prisma, we have 4 models available at this moment: user model, session, account, and then verification. Okay. So let's push these changes to the database. I'm simply going to open the terminal. I'm going to execute pnpm tlx prisma db push. This is going to push all the changes to the database, and it is also going to generate the Prisma client for me. Okay. Now I'm simply going to start the development server. And since we have upgraded all these packages, I think the first thing we should do is to test out all of the basic functionalities that I have added in the previous video. Specifically user registrations, sign in, forget password, things like that. So let's quickly test if this is working as expected or not. I'm just going to click on this container with GitHub, and then it is going to execute this auth flow. I'm going to choose my account, and then it looks like I am logged in. Perfect. So that means registration and sign in is working at this point. What about other stuff like forget password? Now, one thing to keep in mind that I have not set up all of the stuff related to email because I'll be doing all of this locally, right? So one of the things I think we can do, I can come to my auth configuration file, and I think in 2 places we are going to be needing emails. Okay. So I think in the first one where we'll be trying to reset the password, which is this one. So just before sending the email, why don't we simply log these URLs so that we can access them and reset the password? I'm simply going to say URL for resetting the password, and then I'm going to log the URL. Perfect. And similarly, I'm going to be doing that in the case of email verification. So user have to verify their email if they are using the credential based provider, right? In this case, we won't be doing that because I have used GitHub to sign in. So my email is already verified, but just in case, let's also add this log verification URL to verify the email. And then I'm just going to log verification URL. Let me move this below this line. Okay. Now at this point, if I come to this forget password, let me try entering my email, and it looks like we got some error. Send grid API environment variable is not set. Let's come back to auth.ts. I will simply comment this out for now. I'll come here, send reset link. If an account exists with this email, you will receive a password reset link. Now I'm going to come here. Now this is the URL. I'm going to click on this URL, and now this opens this URL in the browser, and you can see I can now change my password. But here's the problem. If I try to do this, let's say, and I click on reset password, you'll see that I'm getting this error invalid token. Now this is one of the breaking changes that they have introduced, and this was working up to the version, I believe, Better Auth 1.1.10. But this is a very simple fix. We just need to come to the reset password page that we have created. And in this one, just like we are getting this error query parameter, we can also get the token parameter like this. Search params dot get, and I can say token. Okay. Now inside of this on submit method, the first thing that I'll do, I'll simply check. Well, if we do not have the token, let's just do not do anything. Okay. If you want, you can show a message over here like toast notification or something. So I can just copy this line, paste it right here, and I can say token is required. Okay. So that means if the token is not available, we won't submit this. We won't call this on submit method. Okay. And then here, when the token is available, we just need to pass the token here like this. Okay. And since these both properties and values are same, I can simply remove this one and make it like this. Now this is all we needed to do to fix this problem. Let's see if this works or not. I'm simply going to reload this. I'm going to add my password, and now you can see the password reset successful. And by the way, if you're wondering, like if we logged in with GitHub, why are we doing forget password? Well, in Better Auth, you can do this. It is just going to add the newly added password to the database, and you'll be able to log into your account using both credential and GitHub. So I can use that to sign into my account, and you'll see I'm logged in. All right. So at this point, we have upgraded all these packages, and pretty much all of the basic stuff is working at this point. Okay, let's now start setting up Stripe plugin. So first we need to install better auth Stripe plugin. So I'm going to execute npm add better auth Stripe. This is going to install the better auth Stripe plugin. Next step is to install Stripe SDK. Now at the time of making this video, the latest version of Stripe SDK is version 18. But there are some breaking changes with better auth Stripe plugin, and it does not work properly with Stripe SDK version 18. So at this point, I would recommend you to install an older version of Stripe SDK, probably something like 17.7.0. Now Stripe 17.7.0 is installed. Perfect. Next step is to come to the auth configuration file, auth.ts, which is present at the root of the project. Now in this one, we need to import a few things. First of all, I'm going to import Stripe from Stripe like this. We will also import Stripe from better auth Stripe like this. I'm going to create a new instance of the Stripe client. This is going to be a new instance of the Stripe, and here we'll pass the environment variable process.env.stripe secret key. I will tell you how to get this key in just a moment. Let's first complete the configuration. Okay, so we have created a Stripe client, and now inside of the plugin section here, just after this admin plugin, I can add a comma. I can add my Stripe plugin. You have to call this and you need to pass a configuration object. Now here you need to provide a few very important things. Let me format this real quickly. I'm going to make it like this, and then let's also put it here. Okay, now in the Stripe plugin, we need to add a few things. The first thing that we need to do is we need to add Stripe client. Okay, then we need to add Stripe webhook secret. So I'm going to do something like this and make sure this is present as an environment variable. So we'll do this again, Stripe webhook secret. Okay, and we just need to add one more property called create customer on sign up. I'm going to set this to true for now, and I think we have made one mistake inside of this import. This is gonna be a named export, so let's do it like this, Stripe, okay, from better auth Stripe. Now if you have never worked in Stripe, this is how it works in a very simple manner. So Stripe has a lot of customers, right? You can imagine that each user within your application is going to represent one Stripe customer. One customer can have multiple Stripe subscriptions. One Stripe subscription can have multiple subscription items. For the simplicity's sake, we'll assume that we just have one subscription item in a single subscription. And this will all make sense if you just keep on watching the video, okay? At this moment, the only thing you need to understand is when I am setting this to true, what I am saying is whenever a new user comes to my application, also create a Stripe customer linked to that user in my Stripe account. So this is what we had to do inside of the auth configuration. Now the next step is to add the configuration to the client side. So we can go to auth client.ts. Here I'm going to import Stripe client from better auth Stripe client like this. And within this plugins, I'm just going to add my Stripe client. So I'm just going to do Stripe client. Again, I'm going to call this pass a configuration object. And in this one, I'm going to specify subscription. I'm going to set it to true. Now you need to set it to true or false depending upon if you want subscription in your application or not. We definitely want to do that because that is why we are using Stripe in the first place. So we'll be setting this to true. All right. Now the next step is to update our schema that we have created. So I'll go to schema.prisma file, schema.prisma. In this one, we need a new model called subscription. And these are all of the fields that you need to add in this table or collection depending upon whatever type of database you are using, right? So we'll have the ID, the plan name, reference ID, Stripe customer ID. Reference ID by default represents the user ID of the user. So in better auth, what happens is you can apply a subscription either to an user or to an organization. You have both of these options. But by default, a reference ID simply takes user ID of the user, because more often than not, that is what you'll be doing. Then we have Stripe customer ID, subscription ID, status, period start, period end, and then all of this stuff. We just need to add one more column inside of the user table, user collection. Inside of this, we just need to add Stripe customer ID. This is going to be in string. It is going to be optional, just like this. Okay, so that is all you needed to do to set up Stripe plugin within your Next.js application. Now do keep in mind, if you do not want to add all of these fields manually or these models manually, you can execute this command generate, and it is going to automatically add these schema to your schema file. But I like doing this manually so that I can understand what are all of the things I am adding. Anyways, now the next step is to set up a Stripe webhook. You just need to search in Google Stripe dashboard. Then you need to come and create a new Stripe account if you do not have one. Once you'll be logged in, just for the testing stuff, make sure you enable the test mode. And then at the bottom left side here, you will see this developer section. Just click on that. You'll see all of these important tabs, right? I'm just going to click on this webhooks, and here I'm going to click on this add endpoint. Okay. Now, as soon as you do that, it is going to open this kind of interface. And here you can add your endpoint, webhook endpoint. Or if you're just testing this locally, you can use this option, test in local environment, right? Then Stripe will give you all the instruction, like how do you set up this locally. The first step you need to do is to download the Stripe CLI, and let's open this in a new tab. Now it will give you all the instruction in terms of how do you install Stripe CLI in your operating system. So if you're using Mac OS and you have Homebrew installed, you can use this command to install Stripe CLI. For Windows, you can go with Scoop, and then you have essentially a lot of options, right? After installing the Stripe CLI, you would have Stripe available. And then what you need to do, you need to execute Stripe login. This is going to give you an URL that you have to open like this. And then you just need to enter your code if you have enabled the two-factor authentication, and then it will be logged in automatically. Now I've already done this. I'm going to close this. Okay. So you can see logged in on Aditya. And then after that, we need to forward all the events to our webhook endpoint. Now what this tells you that you need to do something like localhost :4242 webhook. But this is not correct in our case, because we need to forward all of these events to an endpoint where BetterAuth is expecting those events, right? And for our scenario, this is going to be something like this. I'm just going to say Stripe listen. That means start listening for all of the events. And then I'm going to say forward all of these events to localhost :3000 API auth Stripe webhook. When I hit enter, you will see that it is going to give you ready. You are using Stripe API version this and this. Your webhook signing secret is this. Now you can see this is the signing secret. So you can copy this and then come to your environment file and then add the secret right over here. Now the last step is to configure what kind of events you want Stripe to send to you. Okay. Now BetterAuth recommend you should have at least these 3 events. And by these 3, I'm talking about these 3. Checkout session completed, customer subscription updated, customer subscription deleted. So you should be listening for at least these 3 events. But you do this in case of production, because in case of local development, you'll be getting all of these events anyway. So do keep in mind that if you host this somewhere, you will enter your webhook endpoint here, and then you will choose all of the events that you need to listen to. Okay, so at this point, we've got Stripe CLI configured. We are listening for all the events. We just need one more thing. We need Stripe secret key. Okay, let me show you from where you can get that. I'm going to close this here. And then within this developers tabs only, you'll see this API keys option. I'm going to click on this. And here you will find your secret and publishable key. You need to take this secret key that you're seeing over here. You need to copy this and then paste it right over here. Now, since we have added a few things to the schema, and to keep things simple, I'm just going to delete the database that I have created, and then I'm going to re-push all these changes to the database again. Now, since we have added the subscription model and we also added the Stripe customer ID field in the user model, we should push all these changes to the database again. Now I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to delete the entire database and then push all these changes. So I'll simply come to my database. I'm going to click on this to delete the better auth database. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll simply do pnpm dlx prisma db push so that it push all those changes. Okay, pnpm dev to start the development server. Now if everything works as expected, whenever a new account gets created, it should also create a new Stripe customer. So I'm going to click on this continue with GitHub, choose my account. Okay, so I'm logged in, you can see. Now I can check in the database. I'll come here, click on this, refresh. This is the database, better auth. I'm going to click on this. Now we need to go to the user collection and you'll see that in the Stripe customer ID, the customer ID is present. And you can also verify this by going to your Stripe dashboard. Let me show you. So I can come to the customers, well, in the dashboard.stripe.com, and in the customers, you can reload this page and you'll see that this is the customer that got created. And when I click on this, you'll see this user does not have any subscriptions at this moment, and that makes perfect sense. All right. Now do keep in mind when you are testing all of this stuff, your local instance of Stripe should be listening for all the events, and it should be forwarding all those events to the webhook endpoint. Now let's start by creating the plans page for our application. So inside of this app directory, I'm going to create a new folder. Let's call this plans. And then within this plans folder, I'm going to create this page.tsx file. And this is just a dummy page, plans, showing subscription plans. We do not have any content in this one at this moment. Now to add the plans in this one, what I'm going to simply create a folder at the root of the project. Okay. And then I'm going to create a new file called plans.ts. Okay. In this one, I'm going to include all of the plans that my application has. Now this file is going to export a constant called plans, and this plans is going to be an array of object. Now each of these object is going to represent one plan. Now in all of these objects, you should have at least these three properties. The first one you need is the name. So name basically means the name of the plan. So let's call this basic plan and make sure this is unique. Okay, this is important. The second thing you need is the price ID, which is going to be the Stripe price ID that we'll be creating in a bit inside of the Stripe dashboard. And then you can also have something like limits. And inside of this one, you can specify all the features that are present within this plan. So consider this example that let's say you are creating an AI-based application where you'll be giving a certain number of tokens depending upon which plan a user has. So in this one, I can say that this plan will give about 100 tokens. Now, if you want to attach a trial to this plan, you can add this property called free trial. This is going to be an object where you can specify how many days of free trial you want to provide. You can put something like 7. Now, according to me, this is not a very good way to implement trial functionality, and I do not like this at this moment, because when you do something like this, you cannot override this in case of checkout session, right? And typically what happens is you provide trial based on if the user already has a plan or not. So for example, if you have a new user and they have not purchased any plan, you will give them a trial plan, right? But let's say if the user already has a paid plan, in that case, it does not really make sense to assign that user a plan that has trial attached to it. Now, there are two ways to handle this. You can create multiple of these objects. Some will contain free trial and then others will not contain the trial option. So based on that, you'll be able to control which plan has the trial option and which does not. I do not like doing this. I'm going to show you a different way. According to me, that makes more sense. So let me remove this from here. Okay. And let's say apart from this basic plan, let's also add this another plan called Pro plan. I'm going to add, let's make this Pro. Again, we'll be having the price ID. I'm going to keep this empty for now. And in the limits, I'm going to specify that it is going to have about 300 tokens. Okay. Now we need to get the price ID. So in order to get the price ID, what we need to do, we need to come to the Stripe dashboard, and then we need to come to this product catalog section that you are seeing over here. I'm going to click on this. Then we need to click on this create product. Here you need to enter the name of the product. Now it could be anything. Let's say better auth Stripe. Okay. And then you need to attach a price to this product. So for example, I am interested in 3 prices because I'll be creating 3 plans inside of my project. So in this one, I can specify, let's say my first basic plan starts with $9.99 USD. It is going to be a recurring plan. That's why I chosen this. And it is going to be a monthly plan. Okay. I'm going to click on add product. So you'll see that we have created this better auth Stripe product. I'm going to click on this, and you can see this is the pricing that is attached to this particular product. Now in Stripe, what you can do, you can have multiple pricing attached to a single product. So I can click on this and it will allow me to add more pricing to this one. So I'm just gonna add, let's go with 29. Okay, I'm going to click on create price, and then I'm going to add one more. Let's go with 59 USD every single month. Create price. Okay, so now we have this product better auth Stripe. We have 3 prices attached to this particular product. I can click on any of these prices and it will give me the price ID that I am interested in. This is the price ID that I am showing you right over here, this one. So I can click on this, it will give me the price ID. Now in the plans page, I can say, okay, this is the basic plan. So in this one, I'm going to keep this price ID. Okay. And similarly, I'll go back. I'll take all of these price ID. So this is for 29 US dollars. This should be the pro plan. And then the last one, 59 USD per month. Let's take this ID also. And now let me create another plan. Let's call this Ultra. The price ID is gonna be something like this. And limits, I'll say, it will give you about 900 tokens. Okay. So now we have created this plans. The next thing that we need to do, we need to come to auth.ts configuration file. Inside of this Stripe plugin configuration, I'm going to add this subscription option. This is going to be an object. I'm going to enable this by setting enable to true. And then here I need to specify all those plans. So I'm going to do plans, and let me import plans from the constant file that I have created. So this is how you tell the Stripe plugin that these are my plans. Okay. But if you think about it, you also need to render these plans so that user can see these plans and then subscribe to these plans, right? And that is why we have created this plans page in the first place. So how about we import all those plans over here and then render those plans over here? Now here's the thing. The reason I created a separate constant file called plans, because I needed this same kind of configuration both inside of the auth configuration and then in the plans page. Okay. But the thing is, I can add extra field to all of these plans, which I'll use during the rendering of these cards in the plans page. Now let me show you what I'm talking about. The first thing that I'll add is an ID. Okay. So I'll attach ID to all of these plans. Now this ID is a custom field. It is not required by better auth Stripe plugin. Okay. Let me mark this as custom field. I'll add features. So features is going to be an array, and I'm going to say gives you access to basic features. Okay. And apart from these features, I'm also going to add the price, in which I'm going to specify, okay, this cost you about 9.99 USD. Okay. Now, obviously you can fetch all of these information directly from Stripe itself, but I want to keep things simple. So let's keep it like this only. I will copy these and paste these in the other plans also. So this gives you access to pro features. It costs you $29.9. And then this gives you access to ultra features. It costs you $59.99. Okay. And now I can come to my plans page, and then I can simply add all of these. So here's what I'm doing. I'm just importing the plans from the plans constant, and then I'm rendering these plans over here. Okay. Now at this point, if we just go to the browser and try going to the plans page, you'll see all of these cards over here. The next thing we need is a button so that user can click on these button to subscribe to a plan. So inside of this components folder, I'm going to create a button. Let's call this create sub button.tsx. Okay. And here's what I'm doing in this create subscription button. So first of all, this is going to be accepting a button text, which I want to show over here. And then the plan, which the user is trying to subscribe. Okay. This is just going to render a button over here. Clicking on this button calls the handle subscription creation. Now here the plan type is going to be the plan type. So let's create the plan type by going to the plans constant that we have created. And probably at the top of the file itself, I can export an interface called plan. And this is going to have a few things. ID is going to be a number. Name is going to be a string. Price ID is also going to be a string. Limits can be anything. And then features is going to be an array of string. And then we have the price, which is going to be a number again. And then we can specify here also that these plans are going to be an array of the plan. Perfect. We're exporting this interface out of this file plan. So I can come here and I can import that interface. How do I import it? 1 second. Okay, like this. Perfect. Now here's the important stuff. How do you create the subscription using Stripe plugin? Well, pretty simple. We first need to import the auth client from auth client like this. Why we are importing auth client? Well, because we are inside of a client component. Okay. Now when we call this function, we just need to do this thing. I'm going to say auth client. This is going to have a subscription object. And then this subscription is going to have an upgrade method, right? This upgrade method needs an object, and this object should have a few important properties. The most important one is the plan. And here you need to specify the name of the plan. And that is why I said you need to make sure that this is unique, okay? I'm going to say plan.name. Okay. Second property, I can specify success URL, which basically means where the user should be redirected after their payment is complete. So let's redirect the user back to the home page only for now. Okay. And then last, if the user decides to cancel and do not proceed with the process, where should the user be redirected to? Let's take the user back to the dashboard page only, home page. Okay. Now when you call this, you can get the error by doing something like this, right? And if there's an error, you can show that error to the user. But right now I'm just going to log this error. Okay. So this is all you needed to do to create the subscription for the user. So I can just go to the plans page. And I think just below this UL tag inside of this div only, I'm going to import create subscription button. Let's call this create sub button. Okay. Here I need to specify the button text. I'm going to say this is the button text I'm going to be passing that I have created over here. And then I'm simply going to pass the plan like this. Okay. Let's copy this and use it right over here. Okay. So at this point, we should have a button in all of these cards also. Let's take a look. Perfect. So you can see all of these buttons says subscribe. Okay. Now if I click on this subscribe button, it takes me to this checkout page, right? I can enter dummy details, photo. And then here I can do that. I can enter my name. And then when I click on the subscribe button, you'll see that it redirects me back to the dashboard. But if I come to the database and I refresh this, you'll see this new subscription record created, and it has few very important properties. Plan basic, reference ID. Now reference ID here by default picks the user ID of the user. Let me show you. So if I go to this user collection, you'll see that my user ID ends with WZ. And in the subscription, here reference ID ends with WZ. So this is basically the user ID of the user, okay? Then we have the customer ID, Stripe customer ID. The plan status, seats here basically means, let's say how many licenses you need. And this could be very useful for your organization kind of things. For example, you are trying to create a subscription for an organization, and in this subscription you can allot, let's say, 10 seats. So that means you are basically allotting 10 licenses. You get the idea. And then we have the Stripe subscription ID, all of that stuff. And similarly, I can come to my Stripe dashboard. I can go to customers. I can click on this user, and you'll see that the subscription has been created. That means we are able to create subscription at this moment. Now user has this plan at this moment. Let's see how we can show that information probably in the home page, like which plan a user has at this moment. Now to do that, I'm just going to create a server action inside of this actions folder. Let's call this sub.ts. Okay. I'm going to mark this entire file as a server action file. And then I'm going to create a function here. Let's call this get active subscription. Okay. So this should return the active subscription of the currently logged in user. Okay. Now, since this is an async function, so this is going to return a promise, which is going to resolve itself with this object. In this one, I'm going to have this status, which is going to be a Boolean value, a message, which is going to be a string, and then the subscription, which is going to contain the subscription of the currently logged in user. I can import subscription from BetterAuth Stripe like this. Now in this server action, the first thing that I'm going to check is if the user is logged in or not. Okay. And also let's make this message optional because we won't be including this every single time. All right. So in order to test if the user is logged in or not on the server side, I can import auth from auth. I can then do API, and then I can do get session, and make sure we await this also. Okay. And then when we call the get session, we need to pass the headers, and we can just call the headers by importing from next headers like this. Okay. So this is how you get the session info on the server side. I'll simply check if the session does not exist. I'm simply going to return an object that is going to have its status set to false. And then the message is gonna be you need to be logged in. Okay. And I'm going to mark subscription as null. That means I need to specify over here also that this subscription can either be a subscription or it is null like this. Okay, so if we are here, that means the user is logged in. So I'm simply going to create a try catch block here. If there's any error, first of all, I'm going to log this error. Okay. And then I'm going to return an object, which is again going to be status false, message something went wrong, and then subscription is going to be null in this case. Now, in order to get the active subscription for this particular user, here's what we can do. I'm going to create a variable called active subs, and then I'm just going to use the auth instance. It is going to have this API method, and then it is going to have this method called list active subscriptions. You need to call this and make sure you also pass headers in this one also, otherwise this is not gonna work. Okay, like this. Now this is going to give you all the active subscription of the currently logged in user. Now in the documentation, they are saying that at one time, only one subscription is supported per user or per organization using this Stripe plugin. But I have seen some rare occurrences in which we have multiple subscription records inside of the subscription table just for a single user. Now that does not mean that all of those subscriptions are active. It could be that some of those are cancelled. Okay. So this is going to give us access to all those subscriptions right here. Now, if you notice carefully, this list active subscription is going to be returning a promise, which is going to resolve itself with an array of these objects. Okay. And these objects basically represents your subscription. Now, you need to understand this very important thing. If you take a look at the subscription record that we have created in the database, you won't see anywhere that we have added the limits option. Right? You don't see any limits column in this one. But if you take a look at the definition of this list active subscriptions method, you'll see that it also contains this limit. right? So this will give you all the things along with your subscription that you are probably interested in. My point is, this is just not a direct query of your subscription table. It contains some extra information also. And since this is gonna be an array of object, I will loop through these subscriptions and then I'll check if it contains more than one subscription object. I will try to find the first subscription in which the status is either active or trialing. Otherwise, if it contains only one, I'm just going to get the first object. And then we will return active subscription like this. So, okay, so I have forgot to include s here. Let me do that like this. So now we got this function ready, which is going to return the active subscription of the user. Okay. Now do keep in mind that this list active subscriptions method is only gonna work on the server side. If you need to list out the active subscription for the user on the client side, you can do this, what I'm showing you on the screen right now. So this will work on the client side. Now we have created this get active subscription method. I can now come to the home page of my application and I can update this entire code. So I'm just going to paste the code that I have created. Okay, so you can see that I've got the get active subscription method from the sub. We're calling the subscription method. It will give us the data, which is going to include the subscription like this. And then this will be the active subscription, and we are just rendering the information from that subscription in a card here. It is giving me this error that it has no exported member called get active subscription. Did you mean subscription? Okay, I need to come to this sub file again, and in this one let's include s in here. So here's what we did. We just imported this active subscription. We called the active subscription. We got the data. Now this data object contains this subscription, which tells us the active subscription of the user, right? If the active subscription is present, we are rendering this card. Otherwise, we are showing the user that you do not have an active subscription plan. Go to the plans page. Okay. And then inside of this card, we are just rendering these information. Now, if you take a look, that we are getting this error that limits does not exist on type subscription. But why is that? Let me show you why this is happening. So if we go to the sub.ts server action file, you'll see that I have specified that this subscription is going to be a subscription which is coming from Better Auth Stripe, right? Now in this subscription, it does not include anything related with limits or something. Okay, but I know for a fact that this does contain the limits option because the way I am getting the subscription is using this list active subscriptions method from here. And if I hover over this, you can see that it does contain this limits option. So that means we just need to tell TypeScript that, bro, you are not understanding this. I know for a fact that this contains this limits option. So to tell TypeScript, here's what I'm gonna be doing. At the root of the project, let's create a types folder like this. Now in this types folder, let's create a new definition file like better auth.t.ts. And in here, I can just import this, declare this module, extend this interface like this. Now do keep in mind, according to your structure, you'll put a different thing here, but this will do the job. So now if I come to the home page, you'll see that we are not getting that TypeScript error. And if I just come to the application, you'll see all of the details related to the current plan is present over here. So you'll see that basic plan, this is the name of the plan. Then the status is active. It is going to auto renew itself. It gives you 100 tokens per month and then the seats attached with this subscription. Perfect. So at this point, we're able to subscribe to a plan. We are able to see all the details of this subscription right over here. But what if user want to switch to a different plan? How would they do that? I mean, user can come to the plans page and then they can click on any of these plans to trigger that checkout flow again. But is that gonna work? Let's try this. So right now I have this basic plan, right? Now this time I'm going to choose this pro plan. I'm going to click on subscribe. I'm going to fill all of this information right over here. I'm going to add my name. I'm going to click on subscribe. Okay, so we are back to the dashboard and you can see it shows me that now I have this pro plan, which gives me 300 tokens per month and the status is active. Well, no, this is not working as expected. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I come to my database, you'll see that it contains all of this information. And then in the subscription record, we have the plan, reference ID, Stripe, customer ID, all of this information. Now we do not have multiple records. We just have one subscription record right over here. Now you may think at this point we are only working with one subscription, but that's the problem. Let me show you. If I come to the Stripe dashboard and I go to customers, click on my user, I'm going to click on this and now you'll see that it has two subscriptions attached to this particular user, right? So one is for $9.99 and then another for $29. So what's going on? Well, it is working exactly like it should be. User clicked on these subscribe buttons, which basically created an entire new subscription to these users. But this is not what we wanted. We wanted something else, the ability to switch the plans of the user. Now, if I go back to the create subscription button that I have created, you'll see that we are using this upgrade method, right? Now, this upgrade method also accept a subscription ID if you want. So for example, you can pass the subscription ID here and then it should update the current existing subscription of the user. At least this is what I thought, but it didn't work. So in the subscription ID, what we can do, I'll come to my subscription collection. Let me refresh this once. And now this is the Stripe subscription ID right here. So I'm just going to copy this for now. And then I'm going to come here. And then in the subscription ID, I'm going to pass this. So what this means is that update this existing subscription and attach this plan. Okay. At least this is what I thought. But if I try doing something like this, let's see what happens. Let me open the console. I'm going to click on this basic plan, subscribe. And you'll see this error, subscription not found. It is probably a bug or something, or maybe something that I'm not understanding clearly. Because this does not accept the Stripe subscription ID here. What I need to pass is the subscription ID of the subscription record. And this is the ID that we are talking about. Okay, let's copy this, paste it right over here. I'm going to come here, reload this one, going to click on this again. Now this takes me to the checkout page. I'll enter my details. I'll click on subscribe. Okay, I'm back to the dashboard. You can see that here we are showing the basic plan. But if I go to the Stripe dashboard and reload this page, let's see what do we get. So you saw that we now have 3 subscriptions for this particular user. So this is clearly not working as expected, or probably subscription ID here serves a different purpose, which I do not know at this point. Okay, let me remove this. Now I couldn't find a way to update the existing subscription of the user using the Stripe plugin, at least at this moment. So let me show you how you can implement that directly using Stripe SDK. Inside of the sub server action that we have created, I'm going to create another method in this one. So let's call this export async function update existing subscription. Okay. Now here, this function expects you to pass 2 important things. The first one is the subscription ID. So let's call this sub ID, which is going to be a type of string. And then the second thing is you need to pass the price ID in which you want this subscription to be updated. So probably I can name this something like switch to price ID. This is also going to be a string. This is also going to be returning a promise, which is going to resolve itself with an object. And this is just going to contain 2 properties, status, which is going to be a boolean, and then message, which is going to be a string. Okay. In this one also, the first thing that we'll do, we'll check if the user is logged in or not. So I'm going to come here, paste this code right over here, and then I'm going to say you need to be logged in. Okay. Now, if we are here, I'm going to implement a try catch. If we got any error, I'm going to log this error for now, and then I'm going to return this object. Status of false, message is something went wrong while updating updating the subscription. Okay. Also, since we are accepting these parameters now, so we need to validate these also. So I'm going to say if subscription ID is not present or switch to price ID is not present, I'm going to say status to false, message to, let's say, invalid parameters. Okay. Now inside of this try block, the first step is to get the subscription from the subscription ID. So let's try doing that. I'm going to do subscription. I'm going to await. And here we need Stripe client. So let's do that. I'm going to say Stripe client dot subscriptions dot retrieve and then pass the subscription ID over here like this. Now, if you notice carefully, it tells you that something like subscription does not exist in this Stripe client instance. So what's going on? Well, I think the reason for that is because we are using the Stripe client instance from the Better Auth Stripe client, and we do not want to do that. We want to use the Stripe SDK directly. So let me remove this one. And how about I simply create a new instance? Stripe client. Let me just do something like this. And here I'm going to pass process.env and then Stripe secret key. And then we can use this Stripe client. And now you can see that the subscriptions is available here. So here we are retrieving the subscription based on the subscription ID. Oh God, I don't know why I keep writing this subscription. It should be subscription. Okay. And then I'm going to check if we have the subscription. And if we have the subscription, it should have at least one subscription item attached to it, because we'll be just updating that subscription item, right? So we just need to check subscription dot items dot data dot length, and it should not be empty. If this is empty, status false, message invalid subscription, no subscription items found. But let's say if we have the subscription and it has some subscription items, that means we are here at this point. So this is the important stuff. I'm going to say Stripe client dot subscriptions dot update. Now this update method expect you to pass two arguments. In the first one, you specify the subscription ID that you're talking about. So I'm just going to do subscription ID. In the second one, we'll pass an object like this. And here all of the important things about this update. The most important one is this items. So again, I told you in the beginning that a subscription can have multiple subscription items. Now in this case, I know for a fact that each subscription can only have one subscription item. Items is going to be an array of subscription items, right? Now each of these objects have two very important properties. The first one is the ID, and we want to use the same ID that we have for this particular subscription item. And we can get that by doing subscription.items.data. Let's get the first item, and then this is the ID that I'm talking about. And then in the second one, I need to specify the price. In the price, you need to specify the price ID of the new plan, the price ID of the new plan in which you want to switch. So I'm going to choose switch to price ID. Okay. And then after this items, we can specify few more important properties. One is cancel at period end. I'm going to set this to false. Now what this means is that, imagine this scenario. Let's say user has canceled their subscription. And then after a few days, they came to the application and then they switched to a different plan. In that case, by doing something like this, they'll be able to switch to a new plan. But if we do not set this, it is going to cancel even that plan at the end of the period. So that is why we are setting this to false, because if the user is trying to switch to a different plan, most likely he wants to continue with the service. And then a very important option called proration behavior. This proration behavior is very important. Imagine this scenario. Let's say you have two plans available in your application, $20 and $40. And right now I come to your application and I subscribe to the $20 plan. Okay. Imagine tomorrow you change your mind and you now need to upgrade your plan, which costs $40. Now it would not make a lot of sense that tomorrow, if you need to upgrade your plan, you have to pay the entire $40 amount again, right? Because yesterday you already paid $20. So with this option, create proration, Stripe will automatically handle these calculations for you, and then it will charge the user only that amount, which actually makes sense. So if yesterday user already paid $20, then probably if a user is trying to switch to a different plan, let's say $40, then they should only pay about another $20 or something. So I like setting the proration behavior to create prorations. If you set this to none, user will always have to pay the full amount of the subscription. And if we are here, we're just going to return this object saying that status is true and subscription, well, message is subscription updated successfully. Let me actually delete everything from the database again so that it becomes very easy for you to understand what's going on, because I'm doing a bunch of things just to explain things to you. Okay, I'm going to be deleting this. I'm going to come here, and the only thing I'm going to be doing is I'm simply going to push all these changes to the database again, schema changes. Then I'll start the development server. And let's also come to the Stripe dashboard. I'll come here. I'm going to delete this customer for now. So we'll start from scratch. Okay, so the user has been deleted, as you can see. Let me reload that. Perfect. Now I'll come to my application. I'll click on continue with GitHub, choose my account, and now I'm logged in. Perfect. It should have created a new customer in the Stripe. Perfect. As you can see, it should not have any subscription at this moment. Perfect. Now let's go to the plans. Let's go with the basic subscription first. I'm going to click on the subscribe. I'm going to just enter the dummy details over here. Enter my name, subscribe. Okay, so I'm back to the dashboard page, and you can see the information about my current plan. But if I go to the plans page, it does not tell me which plan I'm currently subscribed to. So let's fix this first. I'm going to import a few things like get active subscription from sub server action and then update sub button that we have just created. And then we'll call and get the correct subscription. It should be subscription like this. Now we have the active subscription information right over here. For the button text, I'm going to update based on if the user has any plan or not. So if the user has a plan, the button would say switch to this plan. Otherwise, this is going to say subscribe. Okay. And then in place of create button, I'm going to just replace this with this code. Now here's what I'm doing in this one. So we do not want to show any button for that card in which the active subscription plan name matches the plan name of that particular card, right? So we'll show just this information. Now here you'll notice a few things that I am checking if the active subscription has this value cancel at period and set to true. I'm going to show this paragraph, your subscription will be cancelled on this and this. Now we'll take a look at this one when I'll show you how do you cancel the subscription, probably a few minutes later. So the point is, it is just going to show this paragraph if the user has cancelled its subscription. Otherwise, we'll show this one, you are subscribed to this plan. Okay. Now for other cards, we'll just check if the user has an active subscription. In that case, we'll just render this update subscription button. Otherwise, we'll render this create subscription button. So if I come to the plans page, you'll see all of this information that in this one, I am subscribed, which makes sense. And we also see all these buttons, switch to this plan, switch to this plan. Now let's first go to the dashboard over here, Stripe dashboard. I'm going to reload this one. You'll see that we should have one subscription at this moment. Okay. Now notice the amount that you see over here, $9.99. Okay. Now let's see if the switching of subscription works. I'm going to switch to this pro plan. Click on this, switch to this plan. And you see subscription updated successfully. And within a few seconds, it automatically reloaded the page. So now we are seeing this updated cards over here. And if we just come here, reload this page, you'll see that we only have one subscription at this moment. And you'll see that it says next voice is for my 11 for $48. But how did it decided to charge $48? Well, if you want to take a look, you can click on this subscription and then you will see this next invoice option. You can click on this and it is going to give you all the information like how it has decided that the next amount should be $48. Okay, I understand how it calculated $48. So what happened was we first subscribed to $9 plan and then we switched to $29 plan. So what happened is Stripe started a full billing cycle. Let's say after 10 minutes we switched to $29 plan. So in that case it refunded the entire $9.99, right? But you are now on the $29 plan. So we subtract this $9.99 from 29, which basically becomes around $20. And then this $29, this is for May to June. Okay. So this total becomes $48. And this is for the next invoice. Okay, so this is working as expected. Makes sense. So at this point, we can subscribe to a new plan. We can also update the existing subscription. Let's now see how we can cancel the subscription. So probably in the home page right here, I can add a button that says cancel subscription, right? Again, I'm going to be creating a new component for this. Let's call this cancel subscription button. This is going to be a very simple component. So this just has a button. When I click on this button, I call this handle sub cancellation. And since this is a client component, I am importing auth client. And then I call auth client.subscription.cancel. And then I also pass this return URL. Now here's what is going to happen. When I click on this button, it will take me to the Stripe page where I can cancel my subscription. Okay, let me show you. So we have created this component. We need to include this in the home page. So just before the closing div, I'm gonna add this right over here. And what this means is if the user already canceled their subscription, they will see this message when your subscription will be canceled. Otherwise, we will show them this cancel subscription button. So subscription button. Let me import this one. Okay, let's see if this works or not. I'm gonna come to the home page. We have this cancel subscription button. I'm going to click on this. It will take me to this billing.stripe.com page. And here I can cancel my plan. I can click on this cancel subscription. Not gonna give a reason why I canceled it. So you'll see that subscription canceled. When I click on this, it will take me back to the home page. And now you can see that your subscription will be cancelled on 5/10/2025. And notice the auto renew has been changed to no. That means this plan will not be continue. You can verify this by going to the Stripe dashboard also. Let me reload this one. And now you can see it cancels May 11. Okay. And it also changed your invoice. You now only have to pay $19. That makes sense. So that means cancel subscription is also working. Now let's see how we can implement trial in our application. Now, how do you want to give a trial within your application is a very subjective thing. But what makes sense according to me is that I want every plan to have a trial, but every user should only be able to use a trial once, and that's it. And once the user has subscribed to a plan, we do not want to allow them to get the trial again in any possible way. So one of the ways I can do that, I'll probably come to my schema.prisma file. And then in this user model, instead of this premium field, which I added in the previous video, just to show you how do you add additional field to the model, let's change this to probably something like trial allowed. Okay. And the default value of this is going to be true. That means initially I'm going to allow the trial. Now, since in the plans page, I also want to render how many trial days I want to provide in all of these plans. I'm also going to add another custom field to these plan objects. Let's call this trial days. And let's say I'm going to give them 7 days. Okay. So I'm going to add this field trial days like this. And in the interface also, I'm going to say it should have a trial days, which is going to be a number. And then I'll go to my auth configuration file, auth.ts at the root of the project. And you'll find this option inside of this user object called additional fields. Instead of this premium, I'm just going to call this trial allowed. This is obviously going to be a Boolean value, but this is going to be required this time. That means for every user object, this field should be present. Okay. Then I'll go to my plans page. And in this one, I'll get the session by calling auth.api.getSession. And then I'll pass my headers. I'm going to save it. Now, the reason why I'm getting session here is because session contains both session and user object. And since we have added that additional field called trial allowed to that user object, by accessing the session, I'll be able to access that field, that whether the trial is allowed for this particular user or not. Okay, so probably just below this block, I can add this information. What this means is that if the trial is allowed, we are going to show this paragraph includes this many day free trial. Okay. And then within this subscription object, I'm just going to add this method get checkout session parameters. This is going to be an async function. It will give you access to the user and the plan that we are talking about. I'm creating a checkout session object in which we have this params property. It is just an empty object. And within this params, we will be sending some of the additional parameters that we are talking about. Okay. So what we're doing here is that if the trial is allowed, we'll add the subscription data object to this params object. And this has one very important property, trial period days. And then inside of the plan, we have specified trial days based on each of the plans. We are pulling that information from there. Let me quickly import this plan type also like this. And then we are returning this checkout session. TypeScript is complaining that this subscription data does not exist on type this. So probably I can just add a type over here that this contains a params. Okay. And then this is going to be an object in which we can have subscription data. Subscription data, this is going to be optional. Okay. And then this contains trial period underscore days. And this is going to be of type number. Let me make this subscription. Okay, I don't know why I keep doing that. Okay, so what all of this means is if the trial is allowed, just include this subscription data object inside of this params object and then set trial period days to the trial days of the plan. And then we'll return this checkout session. Okay, so we have done a lot of things here. Now, the last thing that we need to do, if you think about it, we need to listen for an event like whenever the subscription is activated or completed. And in that case, we need to set the trial allowed to false. So right below this method get checkout session parameters, I'm going to add this method on subscription complete. Okay. Now this is going to give me access to the event that has happened. And the event that we are specifically talking about in this one is the subscription complete event. So we are getting the event.data.object. And then I'm telling TypeScript that this is going to be of type this, getting the user ID from that data. And here we are getting the Prisma instance. And then we are simply setting the trial allowed to false. And you will see right now it is complaining that trial allowed does not exist. It's because we have not pushed the changes and generated the client. Okay. Now let me start from the beginning. I'm going to open the MongoDB Compass. I'm going to delete my old database. I'm going to push all these changes, start the development server. Let me also come to Stripe and delete this customer. I'm going to come here, reload my application. I'm going to create a new account. New account is created. Now, since I'm a new user, I should get trial this time. So if I click on view plans, you'll see that all of these card says includes 7-day free trial. So if I click on probably this one, it will take me to this checkout page that will say try better auth Stripe 7 days free and then $9.99 per month. Okay, I can enter my details. I can click on start trial. Now in the dashboard, you can see the basic plan is set and the status is trialing, which is perfect. I'll come to my Stripe dashboard, reload this page, click on this user, and now you can see we have this subscription and trial ends April 18. Today is April 11, I believe. Yes. So exactly 7 days from now on. Perfect. So this is working as expected, right? But at this point, if I go to the plans page, I should probably include a link over here. You'll see that we do not see those text like trial is available. Because if you take a look at the database inside of the user, you'll see that the trial allowed is set to false. Perfect. That means this is working as expected. Okay, so we basically looked at a lot of things, how to create subscription, how to update existing subscription, how to cancel subscription, how to allow trial, and what are the different little cases here and there. Now at this point, we have completed some of the very basic things that you would need in a web application when you are handling payments, right? Using Stripe plugin. A Stripe plugin give you few more things. Let me show you what I'm talking about. You have these methods available on customer create and get customer create params, which gets executed during the customer creation. So you can tap onto these and then modify the things according to your needs. Also, you do not have to hard code your plans like these over here. You can also dynamically fetch them from your database or something by doing something like this. This reference ID inside of this upgrade method is optional because by default it takes the user ID as a reference when creating subscriptions. If you want, you can add a different kind of references, but when you'll be doing something like this, you also need to authorize these references. So you have this authorize reference method available that you can use to tell if this particular user has the permission to manage the subscription of organization or user that they are trying to manage by implementing something like this. You also have this on event method available to you, which gets executed for all of the Stripe events. So you will find pretty much all of the events and then tap into these events right within this on event method if you need. You have these subscription lifecycle hooks available directly to you on subscription complete, on subscription update, on subscription cancel, on subscription deleted. Okay. These are pretty much self-explanatory. And then inside of the trial periods, you also have these some other functions available, which you can use to send probably emails to your user that your trial has been started, your trial has been ended, things like that. All right, that's it for this video. If you found this video valuable, do like and subscribe to my channel. I'll catch you in the next one.